Exposing Ritvik Vada Scam Part 4. Ritvik supporters say that reading Prabhupada's commentaries is the same as interacting with a pure devotee in person. This, in their opinion, is a full-fledged sadhu sanga. And they often quote the following quotes. Paramahamsa, my question is, a pure devotee, when he comments Bhagavad Gita, someone who never sees him physically, but he just comes in contact with his commentary explanation, is this the same thing? Prabhupada, yes. You can associate with Krishna by reading Bhagavad Gita. And these saintly persons, they have given their explanations, comments. So where is the difficulty? Everyone is helping you. Tamala Krishna, can a Christian in this age, without a spiritual master, but by reading the Bible and following Jesus' words, reach thee? Srila Prabhupada, when you read Bible, you follow spiritual master. How can you say without? As soon as you read Bible, that means you are following the instruction of Lord Jesus Christ, that means you are following spiritual master. So where is the opportunity of being without spiritual master? Madhudvisha, I was referring to a living spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada, spiritual master is not the question of. Spiritual master is eternal. By reading Bible, when you read Bible, that means you are following the spiritual master represented by some priest or some clergyman in the line of Lord Jesus Christ. But what exactly is the nuance? Yes, it really turns out that reading Prabhupada's commentary or reading the Bhagavad Gita is association with a pure devotee or with Krishna. And reading sacred books is also a way to communicate with pure devotees or siksha gurus. What exactly is the problem? It's just that Ritviks read books in a biased way, through the prism of their paradigm. In plain language, they capture the peaks without capturing the essence. And the explanation for this is very simple. Prabhupada himself gives the answer to this question in the Nectar of Devotion. The influence of a pure devotee is such that if someone comes to associate with him with a little faith, one gets the chance of hearing about the Lord from authoritative scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, by the mercy of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, one gradually develops his faith in the descriptions of such authoritative scriptures. This is the first stage of association with pure devotees. In the second stage, after one becomes a little advanced and mature, he automatically offers to follow the principles of devotional service under the guidance of the pure devotee and accepts him as the spiritual master. In the next stage, under the guidance of the spiritual master, the devotee executes regulative devotional service, and as a result of such activities, he becomes freed from all unwanted occupations. Prabhupada's answer is that reading books is the association of a pure devotee. But this is only the first stage of association with a pure devotee. And in the second stage, you already have to accept the Guru, which, as we know, must be manifested before the external senses. And the third stage is the performance of service under his direction. Thus, even in order to read books and understand them correctly, to progress further along the path of devotional service, one must move to the next stage of association with a pure devotee, that is, to accept a manifested Guru. Indian lady, how does one contact the spiritual master? Through a book can you contact the spiritual master? Prabhupada, no, you have to associate. Syamasundara, can you associate through a book? She asked. Prabhupada, yes, through books and also personal. Because when you make a spiritual master you have got personal touch. Not that in air you make a spiritual master. You make spiritual master concrete. So as soon as you make spiritual master, you should be inquisitive. Prabhupada, that's it. And if you think that I do not know, then why do you ask me, and waste your time and my time? Therefore Shastra says that ask from Guru. If you accept somebody as Guru, then ask from him. As soon as you ask, the man to whom you ask, he is your Guru. So all the Vedic literature, all the acharyas, Srila Prabhupada himself tells us to accept a manifested Guru. Therefore the Ritvik point of view is based on ignorance and distortion of Srila Prabhupada's teaching. Therefore, all attempts by Ritvik supporters to crack Prabhupada's teachings in order to confirm their bogus ideas fail. Their whole concept is man-made, it is the path of illusion. We will not go this way, but we will listen to the manifested acharyas. After the departure of Prabhupada, the supreme governing body is the GBC committee and gurus for their disciples. Prabhupada delegated the management of the society to this committee in his will dated June 7, 1977. Prabhupada's idea was the same as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's. He wanted to organize a GBC. The committee was supposed to deal with organizational and management issues. And the acharya or acharyas should manifest themselves in society and exercise spiritual guidance. Currently, ISKCON has a GBC committee that manages the organization. As for spiritual guidance, Prabhupada's books say that it should be done by a top-class devotee, that is, a realized soul. And that was the level of the devotees who were supposed to be spiritual leaders in ISKCON, but at the very beginning, after the departure of Prabhupada, this issue turned out to be an incident in the form of the appointment of 11 zonal acharyas. To understand this issue, one must understand the principle of Guru Tattva. The Ritviks say that diksha is divyajnana, is the transcendental knowledge that the diksha guru imparts. Let's start with the fact that divyajnana is transmitted by the guru, and it does not matter, he is diksha or siksha. There is no difference between them. Anyone who makes a distinction commits an offense. Since in our parampara there are many examples when divyajnana was received through siksha. This was covered in the second video. It's just that the siksha guru, who first initiated the disciple with a mantra, is his diksha guru. Should a diksha guru be a liberated soul or an uttama devotee? Prabhupada's books clearly state that the guru must be an uttama. What does the word uttama mean? It consists of two syllables. Ut and tama. Tama means material darkness. Ut means beyond. That is, uttama is one who is transcendental to the material energy. The second stage of developing devotional service is sadhu sanga, association with pure devotees, that is, with sadhus. The essential condition is communication with a realized soul, which is uttama. And that is what Prabhupada's books emphasize. Presently people are so fallen that they cannot distinguish between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is hampered by 4 defects. He is sure to commit mistakes. He is sure to become illusioned, he has a tendency to cheat others, and his senses are imperfect. Consequently, we have to take direction from liberated persons. Where did the idea come from that diksha guru may not be uttama but madhyama, for example? Prabhupada's books emphasize the idea that the guru should be exactly uttama. The idea that gurus may not be uttama but madhyama became popular when the self-appointed gurus of ISKCON began to fall. However, previous acharyas have stated that a devotee can be a guru when he has reached the stage of nisa or madhyama. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of a second-class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinama Chintamani says, one must get diksha from a Vaishnava. The Madhyama stage is the beginning of Vaishnavism. That is, the Madhyama stage is the minimum qualification of a guru. Is this stage sufficient to lead his followers to the ultimate goal of life? No, it's not. Even for the Madhyama level, it is not recommended to accept disciples. It's not recommended, but it does happen. And this phenomenon is explained in detail in the Nectar of Instructions. Indeed, the advanced Uttama Adhikari Vaishnava devotee should be accepted as a spiritual master. However, one should not imitate the behavior of an advanced devotee or Mahabhagavata without being self-realized, for by such imitation one will eventually become degraded. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given some practical hints to the effect that an Uttama Adhikari Vaishnava can be recognized by his ability to convert many fallen souls to Vaishnavism. One should not become a spiritual master unless he has attained the platform of Uttama Adhikari. A neophyte Vaishnava or a Vaishnava situated on the intermediate platform can also accept disciples, but such disciples must be on the same platform, and it should be understood that they cannot advance very well toward the ultimate goal of life under his insufficient guidance. Therefore, a disciple should be careful to accept an Uttama Adhikari as a spiritual master. The spiritual master must never be carried away by an accumulation of wealth or a large number of followers. A bona fide spiritual master will never become like that. But sometimes, if a spiritual master is not properly authorized and only on his own initiative becomes a spiritual master, he may be carried away by an accumulation of wealth and large numbers of disciples. He is not a very high grade of devotional service. If a person is carried away by such achievements, then his devotional service becomes slackened. One should therefore strictly adhere to the principles of disciplic succession. Not in order to understand this phenomenon, when Kanistha and Madhyama devotees begin to accept disciples, one must study the history of ISKCON, however, not only the ISKCON but also the Gaudiya Math. Letter 2, Rupanuga. In the latter days of my Guru Maharaja he was very disgusted. Actually, he left this world earlier, otherwise he would have continued to live for more years. Still he requested his disciples to form a strong governing body for preaching the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He never recommended anyone to be Acharya of the Gaudiya Math. But Sridhara Maharaja is responsible for disobeying this order of Guru Maharaja, and he and others who were already dead unnecessarily thought that there must be one Acharya. If Guru Maharaja could have seen someone who was qualified at that time to be Acharya, he would have mentioned. Because on the night before he passed away he talked of so many things, but never mentioned an Acharya. His idea was Acharya was not to be nominated amongst the governing body. He said openly, you make a GBC and conduct the mission. So his idea was amongst the members of GBC who would come out successful and self-effulgent Acharya would be automatically selected. So Sridhara Maharaja and his two associate gentlemen unauthorizedly selected one Acharya and later it proved a failure. The result is now everyone is claiming to be Acharya even though they may be Kanistha Adhikari with no ability to preach. In some of the camps the Acharya is being changed 3 times a year. Therefore we may not commit the same mistake in our ISKCON camp. After Prabhupada's departure, ISKCON repeated the same mistake, with the only difference being that instead of 2 acharyas, 11 were appointed. Unlike the Gaudiya Math, ISKCON already had a GBC governing board, which actually saved the organization from the complete fragmentation that occurred in the Gaudiya Math. First, the GBC appointed unqualified people to be diksha gurus. 11 zonal acharyas. Then when many of them fell, and it became obvious to everyone that these people did not have the qualities to be considered Prabhupada's successors. In the 80s, the Guru Institute in ISKCON was reformed, where new initiating gurus were added. Again, there was no talk of a self-effulgent acharya. Today, it turns out that there are several dozen initiating gurus in ISKCON. Does this mean that they are all equally good and you can accept any of them, or are they all false gurus, because they are not self-effulgent, but they were appointed by the GBC? Ideally, a diksha guru should be an Uttama, but in practice it is not always possible to meet such a Vaishnava right away. And as it was said, Krishna sends such a Vaishnava when the devotee is already seriously engaged in devotional service. 8158. That is, in order to meet a true guru, one must be a true shishya or disciple. There are recommendations in the Shastras for Vaishnavas whose diksha gurus are not on the Uttama platform. We will talk about it later in this video. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the Supersoul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. 8147. The other manifestation of the Paramatma is a Vaishnava of the highest level, it is the Mahabhagavata. It doesn't matter if he is a diksha guru or a siksha guru, but he must be. And to determine who is such a manifestation is the responsibility of the disciple. And to determine this, study Prabhupada's books. Pray to Krishna to bring you into contact with such a person. Ritvik supporters will object that an immature devotee candidate cannot determine the Uttama and is forced to make a blind choice, like Russian roulette. If you failed to determine the Uttama and you accepted the Guru Madhyama, don't be upset with this. If the Shastras say that there can be only one diksha guru, then there is no restriction on accepting several siksha gurus. The spiritual master may be more than one. The spiritual master who instructs the disciple about spiritual matters is called the siksha guru, and the spiritual master who initiates the disciple is called the diksha guru. Both of them are my representatives. There may be many spiritual masters who instruct, but the initiator spiritual master is one. A human being who takes advantage of these spiritual masters and, receiving proper knowledge from them, crosses the ocean of material existence is to be understood as having properly utilized his human form of life. The principle of Guru Tattva is not that transcendental knowledge must necessarily be obtained from a diksha guru, but that this knowledge is acquired in the process of sadhu sanga, that is, with communication with a realized person. And it does not matter if this person is your diksha or siksha guru. If out of inexperience or immaturity, you have accepted the guru kanistha or madhyama, and later I realized that your diksha guru does not have sufficient spiritual power, nobody restricts you to find a siksha guru uttama and receive transcendental knowledge from him. Guru madhyama may make sense in the initial stages of devotional service. Then, as one progresses in devotional service, when the devotee becomes serious enough, Krishna appears as an instructing spiritual master, who is the external manifestation of Paramatma, that is, Guru Uttama. He can be both a diksha and a siksha guru. Therefore, there is no roulette here. And in our parampara there are many examples of transmission of transcendental knowledge through siksha. And in ISKCON society there are Uttama devotees. If they weren't there, it would mean that the Prabhupada's teaching doesn't work. The root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. And note that sadhu sanga is necessary for absolutely everyone, regardless of level, even for those who have already awakened love for Krishna. Ritvik theorists accuse ISKCON of not following Prabhupada's alleged last order of July 9th, to continue Ritvik initiations after Prabhupada's departure. But as we have shown, this accusation is false, as the letter was not intended to act after Prabhupada's departure. As the Ritviks say, ISKCON is false because the GBC did not continue to do Ritvik initiations after the departure of Srila Prabhupada. As they state, Prabhupada appointed 11 Ritviks, and these 11 Ritviks appointed themselves diksha gurus after Prabhupada's departure. Therefore, they believe that the GBC went against Prabhupada's order, which means GBC is not authoritative. There are logical errors at this point. First, the letter says rittiks, not ritviks. The fact that 11 rittiks have appointed themselves gurus is clearly a violation of Prabhupada's will and a mistake. But it absolutely does not follow that these 11 should have acted as rittiks after Prabhupada's departure. The mistake of these 11 was that they were not qualified to act as gurus, not that they stopped acting as rittiks. The July 9th letter does not establish any ritvik system to operate after Prabhupada's departure. And the letter does not say that these 11 should continue to act as rittiks after Prabhupada's departure. Similarly, the letter does not appoint any gurus. At this point, both opposing camps were mistaken. The Ritvik supporters misunderstood the July 9th letter. The letter was not designed to take effect after Prabhupada's departure. It did not appoint any officiating acharyas or Ritvik acharyas. It appointed the rittiks, representatives of the acharya, in the presence of Prabhupada. GBC also misinterpreted this letter. They used it to appoint 11 zonal acharyas. And then after the reform of the Guru institution, several initiating gurus were added. And now there are several dozen initiating gurus. But the letter did not appoint any acharyas. Therefore, both options are wrong. What remains in the bottom line is how initiations in ISKCON should be conducted after Prabhupada's departure. We are left with Prabhupada's books and his instructions as to who is worthy to take the position of Guru. In the May 28 conversation, Prabhupada did not appoint anyone in his presence to be Guru. Just like he didn't appoint anyone to become a Ritvik Acharya. However, Prabhupada did not rule out the appearance of a qualified person when he said, Amara Agyaya Guru Hana. Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Amara Agyaya Guru Hana. One can understand the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can become Guru. Or one who understands his Guru's order, the same parampara, he can become Guru. And therefore I shall select some of you.
It is a fact, Prabhupada selected neither Gurus nor Ritvik acharyas, but still there is an option to become Guru for those who understands the order of Mahaprabhu or his Guru order, the same parampara.
So when Ritvik supporters accuse the GBC of violating the July 9th letter, they come to the wrong conclusion that these 11 should have continued to act as Ritviks. They should have continued to act as neither rittiks nor ritviks after Prabhupada's departure. They were also not supposed to become acharyas or gurus. These 11 were supposed to stop acting as rittiks after Prabhupada's departure. And they had to act as prescribed in Prabhupada's books. That is, cooperate in the mission and expect qualified personalities, that is, self-effulgent acharyas. What is evidenced by the conversation of May 28, interview dated 4 June 76 Los Angeles and letter to Rupanuga dated 28 April 74. In general, basically all the misunderstanding occurs around the term self-effulgent acharya. Who should be considered a self-effulgent acharya? And who can determine who he is? Mundane votes have no jurisdiction to elect a Vaishnava acharya. A Vaishnava acharya is self-effulgent and there is no need for any court judgment. A false acharya may try to override a Vaishnava by a high court decision, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he is nothing but a disciple of Kali Yuga.
As Ritvik proponents say, ISKCON is false, because the GBC did not continue doing Ritvik initiations after Srila Prabhupada's departure.
But as we have shown, this accusation is false, as the letter was not intended to act after Prabhupada's departure. And so we are left with the fact that it takes a self-effulgent acharya to continue the parampara. But how do we imagine how an acharya can manifest? For example, after the departure of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, it was not obvious to anyone that the next acharya was Prabhupada, since he initiated his first disciple only 15 years later after the departure of his guru. And as an acharya, Prabhupada did not appear until 66, when he founded the ISKCON Society in the United States, that is, 30 years after the departure of his guru. Only then did he become a self-effulgent acharya. And he did not stay in the Gaudiya Math but founded his ISKCON Society. Therefore, who is an acharya and who is not, only time can show. The whole life of a devotee shows whether he is a self-manifested acharya or not. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did not set a condition for his disciples to stay in the Gaudiya Math. So Prabhupada came out of Gaudiya Math and started his own society. He did not violate the instructions of his guru when he created a separate society. Whereas Prabhupada instructed his disciples never to leave ISKCON, transcendental devotional service cannot be complete and cannot be relishable without the association of devotees. We have therefore established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone who is trying to be aloof from this Krishna Consciousness Society and yet engage in Krishna Consciousness is living in a great hallucination, for this is not possible. And also Prabhupada said that the GBC can select a qualified person to act by the board of the GBC.
Prabhupada, rather, one who is competent, he can be selected to act by the board of the GBC.
Prabhupada's idea was the same as that of his guru Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. This is, to set up a GBC committee within which a self-effulgent acharya should be automatically selected. He said openly, you make a GBC and conduct the mission.
So, his idea was, among the members of the GBC, who would come out successful, and self-effulgent acharya would be automatically selected.
That is, Prabhupada established that the acharya is self-effulgent. Therefore, we have three conditions that Prabhupada set down. 1. The acharya must be self-effulgent. 2. He must operate by the board of the GBC. 3. He must operate within ISKCON. Supporters of the Ritvik idea believe that the GBC deviated from the instructions of the July 9th letter. Because after Prabhupada's departure, they did not continue to act as Ritviks, but instead appointed themselves diksha gurus. Moreover, after the reform of the institution of gurus in the mid-80s, new initiating gurus were added. All this they consider is a deviation, since the acharya cannot be appointed, he must be self-effulgent. But as we have already shown in the first video series, the July 9th letter was misinterpreted by the supporters of the Ritvik idea. The letter is no proof of the establishment of the Ritvik system, let alone the operation of that system after Prabhupada's departure. Yes, you can agree that those 11 rittiks did not have the qualifications to become acharyas. They at least needed to wait until they were properly qualified to start acting as gurus.
If there was a mistake on their part, it was that they were not qualified to act as gurus, not that they did not continue to act as ritviks after Prabhupada's departure.
Therefore, it only remains that the acharya must be self-effulgent. And he should be automatically selected to the GBC. He said openly, you make a GBC and conduct the mission. So his idea was among the members of the GBC who would come out successful and self-effulgent acharya would be automatically selected. But what does it mean to be automatically selected as part of the GBC? This already implies the addition of such a person to the GBC and his election as an acharya. That is, the factor of election is present. Because the organization cannot determine who is an acharya and who is not, it takes time for him to become self-effulgent. Often the whole life history of a particular devotee shows whether he is an acharya or not. It is a mistake that many GBCs act like gurus without reaching the level of Uttama. But at least they can be considered Vartman Pradeshika gurus. And at least they remain in ISKCON and operate within the GBC committee that Prabhupada himself authorized. In addition, after Prabhupada's departure, there are strict Vaishnavas who acted and are acting flawlessly in accordance with the Vaishnava Siddhanta, who by their lives have shown a high level of qualification, worthy of being considered acharyas. Such as, for example, Gaur Govinda Swami, Radha Govinda Swami, and their sincere disciples. If someone from the GBC deviated, this is not a reason to blame the entire GBC leadership and leave Prabhupada's organization. As in this case, you will be acting against the will of Prabhupada and will violate his instruction to never leave ISKCON. When Gaur Govinda Swami was asked why so many people take the position of guru today, devotee, it is often said that a guru must be a pure devotee. Why do so many people take the position of guru today? Gaur Govinda Swami, there are two sides, spiritual and organizational. In this case, it is an organizational issue. If they are not allowed to accept disciples, the organization will fall apart. They want to be gurus, they want some position. It's all material and nothing more. They just do a certain job for the society, they are the highest ranks who run certain zones. Otherwise, how to manage the world organization? And besides, Srila Prabhupada himself authorized the GBC committee to add new GBC members. Satsvarupa, but then in the event that some present GBC member leaves, Prabhupada another should be elected. Satsvarupa, by the votes of the present GBC. And about the GBC committee, Prabhupada said that they should be like the ideal acharyas. And that deviations may occur. Prabhupada, they must be all ideal acharya-like. In the beginning we have done for working. Now we should be very cautious. Anyone who is deviating, he can be replaced. Srila Prabhupada authorized the GBC committee to nominate or select who will be the guru successor or acharya. Of course, the acharya must be self-effulgent, but how will it technically take place inside a huge organization? Since nowhere is it explained what self-effulgent is. And what is the procedure for his being self-effulgent within the organization? And even if such an acharya is self-effulgent, he still needs to be empowered by the GBC, since it is an organization and Prabhupada himself established this condition.
Prabhupada, rather, one who is competent, he can be selected to act by the board of the GBC.
Prabhupada also expressed his idea in the interview. Reporter, is there anyone who is designated to succeed you as the primary teacher of the movement? Prabhupada, I am training some, I mean to say, advanced students so that they may be very easily take up the charge. I have made them GBC, they are under my direct training, and I think they will be able to conduct this movement. Reporter, do you expect to name one person as your successor or have you already? Prabhupada, that I am not contemplating now. But there is no need of one person. As other things are managed but by committee, so this can also be managed, and the committee may elect one person as chief. As, just like in the democracy there are senators and there is president, so it may be I may nominate or they can nominate. Who is an acharya and who is not, time decides. And Prabhupada did not insist that there should be one acharya for the whole society. He said, but there is no need of one person. As other things are managed but by committee, so this can also be managed, and the committee may elect one person as chief. As, just like in the democracy there are senators and there is president, so it may be, I may nominate or they can nominate. I Prabhupada authorized the GBC to name or select the main guru. It is not a violation that the GBC has not chosen anyone as the main guru or acharya. Because Prabhupada gave them some leeway in this matter. Because in the initial stage of devotional service, a Madhyama Adhikari level guru, who accepts Kanishta level disciples and also non-devotees is sufficient. A Madhyama guru can at least teach his disciples the basic level of worshipping the Lord in the temple. As stated hereinbefore, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work, and as referred to in the above verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man, who is expected to become at least a third-class devotee, is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors, and men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. Whereas the Uttama Guru, which is the external manifestation of the Paramatma, is sent by Krishna to the fortunate conditioned soul when he becomes a sincere devotee and is already seriously engaged in devotional service. If one becomes a sincere devotee and seriously engages in devotional service, Lord Krishna sends an instructing spiritual master to show him favor and invoke his dormant propensity for serving the Supreme. Therefore, the GBC does not appoint anyone to be an acharya and does not establish that someone has reached the level of Uttama. It simply doesn't mind any candidate to initiate disciples into ISKCON. Whom to accept as a guru must be decided by the student himself. In accordance with Resolution 409 and in accordance with Prabhupada's books. When the GBC allows a devotee to take up the service of initiating, it does not thereby endorse him as an Uttama Adhikari or pure devotee or certify his having achieved any specific state of realization. Rather, the GBC indicates that it has no objection to his initiating disciples within ISKCON. Within this context, the choice of whom to select as one's spiritual master is ultimately the prospective disciple's own responsibility. Ritvik supporters may object and say that only a diksha guru at the Uttama level can initiate. However, initiation is the acquisition of transcendental knowledge. And yagya is a formality. Well, initiation or no initiation, first thing is knowledge. Knowledge. Initiation is formality. Just like you go to a school for knowledge and admission is formality. That is not very important thing. And we get transcendental knowledge in the process of sadhu sanga, that is, by association with a pure devotee. This is the result of sadhu sanga, consequent association with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and promotion back home, back to Godhead. This result is possible even for a dog, by the mercy of the Vaishnava. Therefore, everyone in the human form of life should be induced to associate with devotees. By rendering a little service, even by eating prasadam, what to speak of chanting and dancing, everyone can be promoted to Vaikuntha.
It is therefore requested that all our devotees in the ISKCON community become pure Vaishnavas, so that by their mercy all the people of the world will be transferred to Vaikuntha, even without their knowledge.
Everyone should be given a chance to take prasadam and thus be induced to chant the holy names Hare Krishna and also dance in ecstasy. By these three processes, although performed without knowledge or education, even an animal went back to Godhead. And if there must be one diksha guru, then there is no restriction to accept several siksha gurus. If due to inexperience or immaturity, you accept a diksha guru madhyama, and then realize that your diksha guru does not have sufficient spiritual strength, you can accept siksha guru uttama and there will be no problems. It is the duty of the disciple to be obedient to both the diksha guru and siksha guru. If the initiating guru appears to be lacking in spiritual potency, then the disciple may approach a more advanced Vaishnava for spiritual instruction. The disciple should respect the instructing guru, but while receiving instruction, he should not neglect his diksha guru. Just like when Madhavacharya took siksha from Vyasadeva, although his diksha guru was Achyuta Preksha. And there are many other examples in our parampara. In general, the term sadhu sanga is closely connected with the term sankirtana, because sankirtana is congregational chanting. Prabhupada, yes. Ado shraddha tata sadhu sanga. This chanting and hearing should be in the association of devotees. First of all, one must have faith that chanting is good. Then he should chant in the society of the devotees. Then it will develop. He can chant anywhere. But if he chants alone, therefore sankirtana, Bhahabir Malita. Many devotees chanting together, that is called sankirtana. So our movement is sankirtana movement, many devotees together would chant the holy name of God. Then it is very quickly successful. Just like a person who comes to our center in the association of the devotees, after few weeks, he also becomes devotee. Quickly. And there are many others, they are seeing that there is a group like this, but because they do not come, they do not understand. Therefore the quick development process is to execute devotional service in the association of devotees, sadhu sanga. Thus the key to success is sadhu sanga chanting with devotees. Thus, association with pure devotees who are siksha or diksha gurus is the key to success. And the initiation is a formality. And there are pure devotees in ISKCON society, so there is no loss from the fact that some guru does not have spiritual power. There are enough siksha gurus in the Sankirtana movement. Whereas the Ritvik theorists, following the false claims, are simply deprived of sadhu sanga and waste valuable human lifetime. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy.